Mask of a Diva, a Stan Kraychik mystery, Book 4, 1994. Author, Grant Michaels. Publisher, St. Martin's Press, New York. Author, Eric Aust. For all the divas, operatic and otherwise. Chapter 27. My first stop that afternoon was a visit to Maurizio in the local hospital. It seemed the least I could do, since the young man had been hurt while saving my life. Besides, as Lieutenant Branco had already observed, I had a certain affinity for puppy-like young men from other countries, though my partner, Rafik, was more the lone panther type. The small Abigail hospital was an exercise in upscale architecture. Perhaps medical science was evolving to the point where decorative veneer was challenging technology in terms of healing power. The lobby was a glass-walled atrium, landscaped with grassy hillocks, ground shrubbery, and some deciduous trees, all to maintain a sense of season. I guess. I half expected to hear birds twittering among the overhead branches and see small animals scampering along the Turkish carpets that graced the marble floors along the corridor to Maurizio's room. I saw that no patient's room had more than 2 beds, and no room had more than 1 occupant. Abigail appeared to be a healthy town. Maurizio was asleep when I entered his room, but as I approached his bed, his eyes snapped open. He gazed at me and made quiet mewling sounds. The arm of the injured shoulder had been immobilized with a rigid splint, and an IV rig was attached to it. But Maurizio's free hand wasted no time in finding one of my own and grabbing it and pressing it onto his crotch. I jerked back reflexively while a vision flashed through my mind of Carmen Miranda patriotically comforting all those lonely injured GIs. Maurizio gave me his sad-eyed look, and I knew what he wanted, but it just wasn't something I could do for him. I was there to visit, not to grope. My Aunt Letta liked to tell the story of when her husband was sick for the last time, and whenever she'd go to see him, he always tried to unbutton her blouse. But he was so weak that he fumbled, so she'd oblige him and haul out one of her substantial breasts for him to fondle. I suppose it was a way of passing the time, or easing the pain, or something like that. It sure as hell disavowed any notion that the body's power to heal was a mystical and sacred process, and that a hospital was like a church. Aunt Letta was never idealistic, especially in mundane matters like sex. Maybe that's why, coming out of my distracted reverie, I found my hand comfortably resettled in the hospitality suite of Maurizio's anatomy. I stayed with him for a half hour, and nothing more happened. No dramatic splashing or anything like that. Just some warm, friendly strokes, until he drifted off. Then I slipped my hand out from under the blanket. He stirred only slightly, and I left the room. At the nurse's station, I learned that Maurizio would have to stay another day, or so, until the deep flesh wound was healing properly, and his white blood count had fallen. At least I knew he was in good hands, so to speak. I drove into downtown Abigail, where I hadn't been since my arrival at the train station 8 days ago. I wanted to find a gift for Daphne, something that would help relieve the effects of the horrible events during the previous week. I found the perfect thing in a small weaver's shop, nestled within an artisan's cooperative building. My find was a summer shawl of raw silk, woven with bold, colorful rectangles of varying sizes along its 6-foot length. I could easily see Daphne draping that length of silk, as inspired as a work of art, luxuriously about herself. As the young woman who had created the piece wrapped it for me, she admitted modestly that she felt it was the best thing she had ever done. And it was almost effortless, she added. I told her I occasionally shared the same experience when I hairstyled, working itself out that way, as though some divine spirit guided my hands, and all I had to do was snip, 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 until the masterpiece was finished. After shopping, I felt the need for coffee, and I found a small cafe tucked in a faraway upstairs corner of the cooperative building. It was the perfect place for a discreet rendezvous, and as though my observation had the power of induction, I discovered two familiar faces in a cozy tete-a-tete at one of the small cafe tables. Jonathan Byers and Rick Jansen. I said to Byers, "I missed you today at the Opera House." He replied acidly, "A man can take a day off." "Especially with his boy," I added. "No one's complaining about that," said Rick. He glanced at Sir John as if to seek confirmation. "Are they?" he said. Byers remarked, "It's no one's bloody business." As I had guessed earlier, Jonathan Byers and Rick Jansen had spent the morning and afternoon together, probably in their hotel room dancing the horizontal tango. While the rest of the cast was rehearsing, it was not a pretty picture in my mind. The two of them coupling, but when is penetrative sex ever really pretty? I said, "I was just visiting my friend at the hospital." "Is that so?" said Byers, hardly interested. "Aren't you the good little Samaritan?" I said, "He got hurt trying to rescue me from an attacker the other night." "How chivalrous," said Sir Jonathan. "Was he hurt bad?" asked Rick. "Bad enough," I said. "The wound got infected," Rick said. "I had a friend once died from blood poisoning." I said, "Well, my friend is recuperating." "He's lucky," said Rick. "What is this?" spat Sir John. "A screen test for Dr. fucking Kildare?" He pushed his chair back so violently he almost upset the flimsy cafe table. "Let's get out of here," he said to Rick, "now that our privacy has been violated." I said, "You're not exactly an exemplar of etiquette." "The difference is," said Byers, "I've earned the right to behave the way I do. I have genius, and what are you besides twaddle?" "Come on," said Rick, coaxing the other man away from the table. "Don't make any more trouble." Jonathan Byers brushed Rick's hand away sharply, then he set off by himself from the cafe, and none too steadily. Ricky spoke quietly to me. "Sorry about that. He's been drinking all night and all morning. This usually happens just before the first run-through." "No problem," I said, but I was puzzled that the boy was suddenly apologizing for the daddy's behavior. They seemed to switch roles easily. "Will it be all right tomorrow?" "Oh, sure," said Rick pleasantly. "I'll see to that. That's my real job anyway, taking care of John. The rest of it is just, recreation," I offered. Ricky cocked his head. "Yeah," he said, "I guess that's a good word for it. Recreation." I added, "For pay." "So what?" he snarled. "Everything has a price. Even devoted love." "Yeah," he said, his hackles raised now. "Even that. You don't have to act so superior. It's just another job, except this one's a damn good gig." I said, "Then you'd better watch out that someone doesn't snatch it from you." "Go fuck yourself," he said. He tried to squint menacingly, but it didn't work. Poor Ricky still didn't realize that blondes cannot be menacing. Dyed blondes can, but natural blondes come off hopelessly silly when they try to look dangerous. He trumped off after Jonathan Byers, and I wondered just how far he'd go to remain daddy's boy. When I arrived back at the estate that evening, I first ran down to the cottage to hide the shawl I'd bought for Daphne. If I gave it to her that same night, it might appear that I was just playing tit for tat. "You rent me a sports car, I'll buy you a shawl." I figured I'd wait a few days so she'd still have it in time for the opening night performance. I just about got in the door to the big house when she met me in the foyer. "I thought I heard the car," she said, "but I didn't see you. Is it running all right?" "It's a dream come true," I said. "Oh, good," she said. "The maestro's in the library, and we're already been celebrating the success of his rehearsal today." Then she leaned close and said, "But I wanted a moment with you alone." She led me into the cloakroom, directly off the foyer, and closed the door behind us. We sat on an upholstered bench, and Daphne told me what had happened that afternoon. Apparently, she had received news of the altercation between Daniel Carafolio and myself in the wig room that morning, and also that I had been promptly dismissed from my duties as his assistant. I explained to her that after such a violent incident, I had no intentions of showing up to work for him anymore. Well, of course not, said Daphne. Tomorrow morning I shall see about dismissing him instead. Don't, I said quickly. They'll all scream nepotism. Let them, said Daphne. I don't care. I don't mean to sound ungrateful, but the job just isn't that important to me. Well then, she said, damn the wigs and let that horrible little man do them all by himself. But wouldn't you like to stay here with me until opening night and help the lieutenant with his case? Does a wild bear shit in the woods? I'd get to drive the Alpha while I earned my deputy badge with Lieutenant Branco and no more Daniel Carafolio. Things were really looking up. Gay Mysteries audiobooks. I think it is easy to hate a label, but a face humanizes the word. So this effort is twofold. To offer comfort to those like myself that your world didn't end because you don't fit into the view of acceptable society on both sides. And in hopes of helping those with family that are LGBTQ, that it doesn't mean we are aliens from the child they once knew. Reassure them so they can maybe be supportive at the same time, being true to their values.